acronym. Extremities. So I'm on page 352. 352. What is aden? Gland. What is tox or toxic? Poison. Tox or toxic is poison. What is gluc or glyc? Gluc or glyc? Sugar. What is cal? K-A-L. K-A-L is potassium. On the K-A-L is potassium. Yeah. Yep. So on the elemental chart, potassium's elemental symbol is K. So when we talk about elements, K equals potassium. So KAL, in medical terminology, is not calcium, it's potassium. Make sure you know that. And that's on page 352, right-hand column, about halfway down. Natter, N-A-T-R, is sodium. N-A-T-R is sodium. Okay. Good. Most of these you guys, well, a lot of these you know already. What's poly? Many or much. What's ultra? Beyond or excess. Beyond or excess. For suffixes, what's the suffix assay? Assay is on page 353. To analyze. To analyze. Carcinoma, well, you know carcin is cancer, oma is tumor, so a carcinoma is a cancerous tumor. Know that the major job of the endocrine system is homeostasis among the various organs and systems and body. So the major job of the endocrine system is maintaining homeostasis among the various organs, systems, and body, which basically is equilibrium or balance, right? Keeping everything in balance and equilibrium. That's on page 353 under function of the endocrine system. Know the difference between an exocrine gland and an endocrine gland. An exocrine gland and an endocrine gland. An exocrine gland is on 354. Exocrine gland secretes their hormones directly into a duct, which takes it where it's supposed to go. An endocrine gland, it secretes it into the bloodstream, somewhere in the body. So endocrine goes into the body, no ducts. Exocrine has ducts that carry it right to where it's supposed to go. There is a chart on page 354 of where all the glands are in the body. We need to know that. Later on, you're going to have questions about what part of the body, so not only you have to label the chart, but later on it asks you what part of the body it is, if those things are in, and it gives you a drop down, multiple choice. So the hypothalamus, I would say, is located in the brain, along with the pineal gland and along with the pituitary gland. The thymus would be in the chest, and the thyroid and parathyroid would be in the throat. But those are multiple choice ones, so it shouldn't be too bad. All right, I know this is in the book, but I could not find the direct quote, so I'm just going to give you the quote. Know that some hormones control and regulate the release of other hormones. So some hormones in our body control and regulate the release of other hormones. So on page 354. So GHRH, you need to know what it stands for. Where it's produced, and what it does. So, basically, you're going to say that GHRH is the growth hormone releasing hormone. It is produced in the hypothalamus, and it controls the release of growth hormone from the pituitary gland. Does that make sense? Then for the next one, GHIH, directly below it, you need to know that that stands for the growth hormone inhibiting hormone. It's also produced in the hypothalamus, and it stops, inhibits means stops, the release of growth hormone from the pituitary gland. So those two are antagonistic to each other, they act against each other. Any questions on those two? Know what oxytocin does. It stimulates uterine contractions and the release of milk during breastfeeding in females. So if a woman is in labor but her contractions have stopped, they will give her a shot of oxytocin to make her contractions start again to help push the baby along. I've never heard of being used for that. I mean, I'm sure it could be, but because it causes labor also, labor pains, I think part of the heart can be. All right. Know that the pineal gland, it's also on page 355, secretes melatonin, which regulates the circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm. Do not put sleep cycle. The circadian rhythm. Page 356. Calcitonin, calcitonin at the top of page 356. It increases the absorption of calcium into the bone. That's what stimulates me. It increases the absorption of calcium into the bones. Right. Number 8 on that page, the adrenal glands produce cortisol, which helps regulate blood glucose levels and metabolizes carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And cortisone, which regulates blood glucose levels. It also produces the mineral corticoids, which balance fluid and electrolyte levels in the body. It also produces mineral corticoids, which balance fluid and electrolyte levels in the body. So when you think of electrolytes, what do you guys think of? What's that? Sodium? Sodium's part of it, yep. Calcium is part of it. Potassium's part of it, right? What are all those things? Those things were all minerals. They're all rocks found in the ground. So the mineral corticosteroids control minerals, which are electrolytes in your blood, if that helps you remember. All right, the adrenal cortex also produces small amounts of sex hormones. The adrenal cortex also produces small amounts of sex hormones. You don't need to go to depth on what they are, just know that it does produce small amounts of them. What does insulin do? Page 357. What does insulin do? It regulates the absorption of glucose into blood cells, thereby lowering blood glucose levels. I like to talk about insulin as a doorman to the cell, right? So I have a big group of people outside, they're in the blood, they're waiting to get inside the cell. So now I'm the doorman, I open it up, all those people are going to rush into the cell. So I'm letting glucose into the cell, and by doing so, you're lowering the level of people that are outside waiting to get in. Pretty simple. All right. Next page, 358. You should remember this from 2 chapters ago, but know that the hypothalamus serves as the control center of the autonomic nervous system, regulating heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and many other involuntary body functions. So hypothalamus serves as control center of the autonomic nervous system. And it has control of all the things that are autonomic, that we don't control. All right. Know that the pituitary gland, also on page 358, is known as the master gland, and that it has 2 lobes. Pituitary gland, master gland, 2 lobes. Pineal gland, page 359, small cone-shaped gland located in the thalamus, and it releases melatonin. So the pineal gland is a small cone-shaped gland located in the thalamus that releases melatonin. All right, next. The thyroid gland wraps around the front and sides of the trachea. Wraps around the front and sides of the trachea and regulates metabolism, which is the process by which the body absorbs and uses nutrients. So all that again, the thyroid gland wraps around the front and sides of the trachea, and it regulates metabolism, or the process by which the body absorbs and uses nutrients. All right, next is the parathyroid glands. Parathyroid glands. They release parathyroid hormone, PTH. So the parathyroid glands release the parathyroid hormone, PTH. This causes the bone tissue to break down depositing more calcium into the blood. Also causes the kidneys to retain more calcium and increase absorption of calcium in the intestines, increasing blood calcium.
Good morning, West Sound Taft. Olympic College is here today to help our students register for accounts out at Olympic College. They'll be meeting in the flex room in the AM and also in the PM. Any questions? Please ask Miss Nora and bring your Chromebook. Thank you.
All right, next is the thymus, which produces thymosin. This assists with the development and maturation of immune cells, and during puberty, it starts to shrink. So the thymus produces thymosin, which assists with development and maturing of immune cells. During puberty, it starts to shrink. Adrenal glands. You have one on top of each kidney. The adrenal glands, you have two of them, one on top of each kidney. And it's broken into the adrenal cortex, which is the outer layer. That secretes glucocorticoids, which help break down carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and regulates blood sugar. So adrenal cortex secretes glucocorticoids involved in metabolizing carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and regulating blood sugar.
Welding, automotive, solution. There's an opportunity for your students to come down to sit after OT.
The inner layer of the adrenal glands is the medulla, and it makes epinephrine and norepinephrine during times of stress. So the adrenal medulla secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine released during times of stress. You don't have to know the diagram on 360 bottom right, but just know that the adrenal gland is split into the outer layer, adrenal cortex, and inner layer, adrenal medulla. Does that make sense? The pancreas. Pancreas makes digestive juices, and it also secretes hormones to control the body's blood glucose levels. So pancreas has two functions: it excretes digestive juices and secretes hormones to control the body's blood glucose levels. The pancreas, and the mannequin is right here, and it's located slightly below and behind the stomach. The pancreas is located slightly below and behind the stomach. So inferior and posterior to the stomach. All right, I'll spell this out for you guys. The islets of Langerhans. So islet is I-S-L-E-T-S of Langerhans, L-A-N-G-E-R-H-A-N-S, has beta cells, which releases insulin and helps lower blood sugar in the body, and alpha cells that secrete glucagon, Glucagon, which makes the liver release blood sugar to increase levels when needed. So beta insulin decreases blood sugar. Alpha glucagon makes the liver release more blood sugar to up the levels in the blood. Know that the ovaries secrete estrogen and progesterone. This is on page 362, top paragraph. Ovaries secrete estrogen and progesterone. The testes, or testicles, secrete testosterone. Testes secrete testosterone. All right, page 363, diseases and conditions. Acidosis. Acidosis. Know that it is a excess of acid in the blood. Excess of acid in the blood. The book says it increases acidity of the blood, fluids and tissues, and excess of hydrogen ions. But what you really have to know is that acidosis is an excess of acid in the blood, body, fluids, and tissues. Make sense? Addison's disease. Addison's disease results from insufficient secretion of cortisol and sometimes aldosterone. So Addison's disease, insufficient secretion of cortisol, sometimes aldosterone. Know what a adenocarcinoma is. Adenocarcinoma. If you break the word down, it's a tumor that is cancerous of a gland, or a cancerous tumor of a gland. Cancerous malignant is the same thing. Depends on which glands, but they're all connected by the bloodstream. And an adenocarcinoma also affects mucus-producing organs. So it's a malignant tumor of a gland or mucus-secreting organs. All right, page 364. Cretinism. Cretinism. It's congenital hypothyroidism characterized by delayed or abnormal physical and mental development. So congenital hypothyroidism characterized by delayed or abnormal physical and mental development. It's all on page 364. This is mentioned in the book by the one for Cushing's disease syndrome, which is the top of page 365. Know that prolonged use of steroids can cause Cushing syndrome. Prolonged use of steroids can cause Cushing syndrome. And that it's characterized by thin, easily bruised skin, hypertension, and weight gain. Cushing syndrome can be caused by prolonged use of steroids, characterized by thin, easily bruised skin, hypertension, and weight gain. All right, diabetes insipidus, right below it, on page 365, is a rare type of diabetes caused by inadequate secretion of ADH by the pituitary gland. So it's a rare type of diabetes caused by inadequate secretion of ADH by the pituitary gland. Diabetes mellitus, or mellitus, is characterized by high blood glucose, which is called hyperglycemia, and by glucose in the urine, called glycosuria. So diabetes mellitus, high blood sugar, which is called hyperglycemia, and sugar in the urine, which is called glycosuria. All right, same page. Diabetic ketoacidosis. The body is producing ketone bodies, as a result of high blood glucose levels. Diabetic ketoacidosis, the body produces acidic ketone bodies as a result of high blood glucose levels. Page 367. Edema is a generalized condition of excessive fluid retention and swelling in body tissues. Edema is a general condition of excessive fluid retention and swelling in body tissues. Graves' disease. One of the signs is exophthalmos, which is abnormal bulging or protrusion of the eyeballs. Exophthalmos, which is abnormal bulging or protrusion of the eyeballs. Seen in Graves' disease. Know that hirsutism is characterized by excessive growth of body hair or presence of body hair in unusual places, especially in females. So hirsutism is a condition characterized by excessive growth of hair or presence of body hair in unusual places, especially in females. Like our last ones, androgens reflect hospital. Just say sex hormones. I don't know what sex hormone is. All right, hyperparathyroidism. Hyperparathyroidism is an excessive production of PTH, results in degeneration of bones. Also called Reckling-House's syndrome. So if my bones are degenerating, it's wrecking my house. Reckling-House. Next page, 368. Insulinoma is generally a benign tumor that causes hypoglycemia, which is abnormal blood glucose levels. Insulinoma is a generally benign tumor that causes hypoglycemia or low blood glucose levels. Know that obesity is an abnormal amount of fat on the body, more than 20%. So to be obese, they have to have more than 20% body fat. That 20 is the key thing you got to know. On the bottom of page 368, the syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone secretion. So know that it causes an excessive secretion of ADH, which increases blood volume, and is called hypervolemia. So SIADH causes excessive secretion of ADH, which increases blood volume and is known as hypervolemia. Page 369. Know that tetany is nervous excitability and muscle spasms caused by inadequate calcium levels. So tetany is nervous excitability and muscle spasms caused by inadequate calcium levels. Page 370. Know that the blood test used to determine the body's response to insulin is the glucose tolerance test. So the blood test used to determine the body's response to insulin is the glucose tolerance test. All right. You guys have all heard of pregnancy tests, right? They're HCG tests. Human gonadotropin, chorionic gonadotropin tests. You don't even know all that, okay? But that's what a pregnancy test is. It's an HCG test. You have two types. You have a qualitative and a quantitative test. Anybody know what the difference is? So you have two types of pregnancy tests. You have qualitative, which are the ones that you buy at the drugstore. Those are qualitative, right? So QUAL is qual, qualitative, and then QUAN is quantitative. What's the difference? Yep. So, if you were to do a pregnancy test, or your friend were to do a pregnancy test, what are the results going to show? It's either going to show, for qualitative, it's either going to show a positive or a negative. That's it for a qualitative test. Does that make sense? A quantitative test is going to give you a number. The quantitative test has to be done in a lab because they're measuring the actual amount of the human chorionic gonadotropin. Does that make sense? So what you're going to see in a quantitative test is you might see something like 200 mcg/dl, which is micrograms per deciliter, right? Very small amount. So qualitative can only be positive or negative. Quantitative tells you the amount. Does that make sense? Yeah, qualitative are the ones you buy at the drugstore. You pee on the stick, the woman pees on the stick, and it gives her a positive or a negative, right? And then it gives you your the check to make sure it's working. I'm trying to what they call that, but yeah. You know, the quantitative tells you the actual amount, and that has to be done in a laboratory. Because they have a baseline. Your baseline for HCG is pretty much 0, unless you're pregnant. But this is how, when a woman is pregnant, they can tell if she's going to lose the pregnancy also. Because throughout the pregnancy, this level should go up. If that level starts to drop for any reason, that's a bad sign. That means the baby's failing to thrive. But the key thing you have to know here is that qualitative is positive or negative, right? Which makes sense. If I ask you the quality of something, you're not going to say, oh, well, it had 200 milligrams of salt in it, right? You're going to say, oh, it tasted good, or it tasted bad. Quantitative, quantity is how much, right? How high. Everybody understand that concept? TSH, hormone test, page 372. TSH hormone test.
She said if it's under 200, you're negative.
Is the most accurate measure of thyroid activity. So thyroid stimulating hormone test is the most accurate measure of thyroid activity. Again, be able to tell the difference between, well, know what otomy versus ostomy versus ectomy is. If I were to say the surgical removal of the liver, that would be what? Hepatectomy, right? So surgical removal is going to be ectomy. Make sure you know that, because some people still got that wrong in the last test. I want to ask you a question like that. People are putting otomy, which is simply cutting a hole into, or cutting into. Ostomy, creating a surgical opening, and then ectomy is removal. So make sure you have those right. Page 374, last one. Page 374. Oral hypoglycemic agents. Oral hypoglycemic agents are drugs taken orally to decrease blood glucose levels. Drugs taken orally to decrease blood glucose levels. And that's it. So if you're recording, stop recording, and I'm going to talk to you about what that means, what it looks like. All right. So if you know somebody who's diabetic, right?